Welcome to a new episode from English Plus Podcast. This is a new episode type we have decided to start creating in English Plus, and today's episode is called Let's Talk. Every time we will talk about different and important topics that are interesting to all people. You might be thinking why we have episodes like this in English Plus. Shouldn't we be learning language and vocabulary instead? Well, learning a language is not always about learning only words and grammar. Exposure to different topics, listening to people talking about different topics will help your language improve immensely, and you need it as much as you need to learn about grammar and vocabulary. On the other hand, remember that we are English Plus. So we're not only about English. The plus part is as important to us as the English part. So without further ado, let's start our very first Let's Talk episode in our brand new Season 6. I will be discussing global problems with our oldest friend in English Plus Podcast, Ben. Ben, welcome to a new Let's Talk episode from English Plus Podcast.
Thank you, Danny. I'm so excited to be here at the beginning of a new season with a lot of interesting content for our listeners this year.
I'm so excited about it too. We've been hard at work to bring the best we can to help our listeners take their English and knowledge to the next level. So today I would like to talk about global problems. First, what do you think the most dangerous global problems we have in our times are?
There are many global problems that are considered dangerous and pressing, such as climate change, poverty, inequality, political conflict, and the spread of infectious diseases. Climate change poses a significant threat to the planet and humanity's ability to sustain itself, as rising temperatures and sea levels, more frequent and severe weather events, and changes in precipitation patterns can disrupt food production, damage infrastructure, and increase the spread of disease. Poverty and inequality continue to be major issues around the world, with billions of people living in poverty and a small percentage of the global population controlling a large share of wealth. Political conflict and the spread of infectious diseases, like COVID-19, can also have devastating effects on individuals, communities, and entire countries.
Let's start talking about climate change. What is climate change?
Climate change refers to the long-term changes in the Earth's climate, particularly the increase in the average global temperature. The primary cause of climate change is the burning of fossil fuels such as coal, oil, and natural gas, which releases large amounts of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. These gases trap heat from the sun, causing the Earth's temperature to rise. This process is known as the greenhouse effect. Climate change has a wide range of impacts on the Earth's natural systems, including rising sea levels, more intense and frequent heat waves, changes in precipitation patterns, and more severe storms. These changes can have serious consequences for human societies, including negative impacts on food production, water supplies, and human health. Additionally, climate change can also cause damage to ecosystems and wildlife, as well as exacerbating existing problems such as air and water pollution.
What causes climate change? Or, since it's already happening, what's making it worse?
The primary cause of climate change is the burning of fossil fuels such as coal, oil, and natural gas, which releases large amounts of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Greenhouse gases, such as carbon dioxide, trap heat from the sun, causing the Earth's temperature to rise. This is known as the greenhouse effect. Other human activities also contribute to climate change, such as deforestation and land use change, which can reduce the ability of the land to absorb carbon dioxide, and agriculture, particularly the production of meat, which generates large amounts of methane, another greenhouse gas. Burning fossil fuels for energy production is by far the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions, responsible for about 78% of total emissions. Other major sources include industrial processes, transportation, and agriculture. In addition to the human activities that cause climate change, there are also natural factors that can influence the Earth's climate, such as volcanic eruptions, solar activity, and changes in ocean currents. However, the overwhelming scientific consensus is that the current warming trend is primarily caused by human activities.
So since we're the main culprits when it comes to climate change, what can we do to stop or at least slow down climate change?
There are several actions that can be taken to slow down or stop climate change, including reducing greenhouse gas emissions. The most important step in addressing climate change is to reduce the amount of greenhouse gases released into the atmosphere. This can be done by transitioning to renewable energy sources such as wind and solar power and increasing energy efficiency. Carbon pricing, implementing a carbon tax or cap and trade system can help to create a financial incentive for reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Investing in clean energy, governments and private organizations can invest in the development and deployment of clean energy technologies to help reduce the use of fossil fuels. Promoting sustainable transportation, encouraging the use of public transportation, walking, and biking, and supporting the development of electric vehicles can help to reduce transportation-related emissions. Enhancing carbon sequestration. Carbon sequestration is the process of capturing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and storing it in long-term sinks, such as forests, soils, and oceans. Changing consumption patterns. Changing consumption patterns, especially the reduction of meat consumption and supporting sustainable agriculture, can reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Adaptation. Some degree of climate change is now inevitable, so we must adapt to the changing conditions. This can include things like building sea walls to protect against sea level rise, improving water management to deal with changes in precipitation patterns, and developing heat-resistant crops to withstand higher temperatures. It is important to note that addressing climate change will require coordinated efforts from governments, businesses, and individuals, as well as international cooperation.
Who do you think should take action, governments or individuals?
Both governments and individuals have an important role to play in addressing climate change. Governments have the power to create policies and regulations that can help to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, promote clean energy, and encourage sustainable practices. They can also invest in research and development to support the growth of clean energy technologies and provide financial incentives to help individuals and businesses transition to more sustainable practices. Individuals also have a significant role in addressing climate change through changes in their own behavior and consumption patterns. For example, individuals can reduce their own carbon footprint by using energy-efficient appliances, driving less, eating less meat, and supporting sustainable products. They can also advocate for climate-friendly policies and support companies and organizations that are taking action to reduce their own greenhouse gas emissions. In summary, it is a collective effort where both governments and individuals have to take responsibility and take action to address the issue of climate change.
I do agree with all the things you said, but let's face it. Some people still don't believe climate change is a real problem that is threatening our own existence on this planet. What do you say to those people who still don't believe we should do anything about climate change? And some of them don't even believe this problem is real.
The overwhelming scientific consensus is that climate change is real and that it is primarily caused by human activities, such as the burning of fossil fuels. The evidence for this is clear and robust, and is supported by a wide range of scientific research and data, including temperature records, ice core samples, and satellite measurements. Climate change is not only a real problem, but it is also an urgent one, as it is already causing significant impacts on the Earth's natural systems, and these impacts are projected to worsen in the future if greenhouse gas emissions are not reduced. However, it is important to understand that not everyone may have access to the same information or have the same level of knowledge about climate change, and some may hold beliefs that are not aligned with the scientific consensus. In such cases, providing accurate and reliable information about the causes and impacts of climate change and the actions that can be taken to address it may be helpful in changing their perspective. It is also important to acknowledge that some people may have financial or political interests that may lead them to deny the reality of climate change. In these cases, it may be more effective to focus on the tangible impacts of climate change that are already affecting people and communities, rather than trying to change their beliefs. It is also important to remember that even if people don't fully understand or believe in climate change, transitioning to clean energy, reducing consumption, and supporting sustainable practices can still have positive effects on the economy, public health, and the environment.
Great. Now let's move on and talk about another big global problem, and that is poverty. How big a problem do you think poverty is?
Poverty is a significant global problem that affects billions of people around the world. According to the World Bank, in 2019, around 736 million people were living in extreme poverty, which is defined as living on less than $1.90 a day. Additionally, many more people are living just above the poverty line and are considered to be vulnerable to falling back into poverty. Poverty is not only an economic issue, but also a social and political one. People living in poverty often lack access to basic necessities such as food, shelter, and healthcare. They may also have limited access to education and job opportunities, which can trap them in a cycle of poverty. Poverty also has a range of negative impacts on individuals, families, and communities. It can lead to poor health, malnutrition, and reduced life expectancy. It also affects children's development and educational outcomes, which can have long-term consequences on their future. Poverty is a complex problem that is caused by a variety of factors such as economic inequality, lack of access to resources and opportunities, and lack of social safety net. Addressing poverty will require a multifaceted approach that includes economic growth, job creation, and access to education and healthcare. It also requires a focus on social protection to ensure that the most vulnerable members of society have access to basic needs and services. International cooperation and partnerships between governments, private sector, civil society, and individuals will be crucial in making progress on reducing poverty.
So, how do we define poverty? Or how can we tell if a person is poor or not?
Poverty is typically defined as a lack of access to the resources and opportunities necessary to meet basic human needs. The most common way to measure poverty is through income or consumption. The World Bank, for example, defines extreme poverty as living on less than $1.90 per day and poverty as living on less than $3.20 per day. This measure is based on purchasing power parity, PPP, and is adjusted for differences in the cost of living across countries. Another way to measure poverty is through the Multidimensional Poverty Index, MPI, which takes into account multiple dimensions of poverty such as health, education, and living standards. This measure looks at both the income poverty as well as non-income dimensions of poverty. It's also worth noting that poverty is not only an economic issue, but also a social and political one, as it can be caused by a variety of factors such as economic inequality, lack of access to resources and opportunities, and lack of social safety net. Therefore, poverty can be measured through a variety of ways, and it's important to take into account multiple dimensions of poverty when trying to understand and address it.
I know this question may sound silly, but whose fault is it? Who is or what is the main cause of poverty?
Poverty is a complex problem that is caused by a variety of factors. While it is easy to point the finger at specific individuals or groups, the reality is that poverty is the result of a complex interplay of economic, social, and political factors. Some of the main causes of poverty include lack of economic growth and job opportunities. Without economic growth, it can be difficult for people to find good-paying jobs and improve their economic situation. Income inequality. When a small portion of society controls a large share of wealth and resources, it can be difficult for others to access opportunities and improve their economic situation. Lack of access to education and healthcare. Without access to education and healthcare, it can be difficult for people to improve their economic situation and break the cycle of poverty. Political instability and conflict. Political instability and conflict can lead to economic disruption and displacement, making it difficult for people to access opportunities and improve their economic situation. Social safety net. In some cases, lack of social safety net like social welfare programs, unemployment benefits, and healthcare can lead to poverty when people fall on hard times and don't have any means to support themselves. It's important to note that poverty is not just a problem of the developing world, it's an issue that affects people in rich and poor countries alike. Therefore, addressing poverty requires a multifaceted approach that includes economic growth, job creation, and access to education and healthcare, as well as addressing the underlying social, economic, and political issues.
Now let's talk solutions. Even though these might be difficult, what can we do to fight poverty both as individuals and as governments?
There are many ways that individuals, governments, and international organizations can work together to fight poverty. Some possible solutions include economic growth and job creation. One of the most effective ways to reduce poverty is by promoting economic growth and creating jobs. Governments can do this by investing in infrastructure and education, creating a business-friendly environment, and promoting entrepreneurship. Redistribution of wealth and resources. Governments can also play a role in reducing poverty by redistributing wealth and resources through progressive taxation, transfer payments, and social welfare programs. Education and training. Education and training can be powerful tools for reducing poverty as it can help people acquire the skills they need to access better paying jobs and improve their economic situation. Access to healthcare. Improving access to healthcare can also be an important tool for reducing poverty, as it can help people stay healthy and productive and avoid the financial burden of illness. Microfinance. Microfinance can help people in poverty to have access to small loans and savings accounts, allowing them to start their own businesses and improve their economic situation. Community development. Community development programs can help poor communities to access resources and opportunities and build their own capacity to improve their economic situation. International aid. International aid can help to reduce poverty by providing resources and technical assistance to developing countries. It's worth noting that fighting poverty is a complex and multifaceted problem, and there are no easy solutions. It will require a combination of government policies, private sector investment, and community-based efforts to make a real difference. Additionally, it's important to ensure that the poor have a voice in the decision-making process and that policies and programs are designed to empower rather than marginalize them.
But don't you think that poverty is a natural result of the never-ending greed that is rooted in humans, leading to very few people controlling almost all resources available? How can we fight greed?
It's true that greed can be a contributing factor to poverty, as it can lead to a concentration of wealth and resources in the hands of a few individuals or groups. However, it's important to note that greed is a complex human behavior that is influenced by a variety of factors, including social and cultural norms, economic systems, and individual psychology. To fight greed, it may be necessary to address the underlying social and economic factors that contribute to it. For example, changing social norms around what is considered acceptable levels of wealth and income inequality can help to reduce greed. Additionally, economic systems that promote fairness and equality, such as progressive taxation and social welfare programs, can help to redistribute wealth and resources and reduce poverty. At the individual level, people can also take steps to reduce greed by examining their own values and priorities and making conscious choices to consume less and share more. Additionally, promoting education and awareness about the negative effects of greed can help to create a culture that values fairness, equality, and the common good. It's important to note that fighting greed is a complex and multifaceted problem that requires a combination of individual, community, and systemic efforts. It's also important to keep in mind that greed is not only limited to individuals, but also can be found in companies, organizations, and governments.
That's true. Maybe it's a fight we will never win, but we will keep fighting nonetheless, because this may be the only war worth fighting.
It's true that fighting greed, poverty, and other global problems can be a difficult and ongoing effort. However, it's also important to remember that making progress on these issues can have a significant and positive impact on people's lives and the health of the planet. Even small steps towards reducing poverty and inequality, promoting sustainable development, and protecting the environment can make a big difference. Additionally, it's important to remember that addressing these global problems is not only a moral imperative, but it is also in the best interest of all nations and people. For example, reducing poverty can help to create more stable and prosperous societies, while addressing climate change can help to protect the planet for future generations. It's worth remembering that progress on these issues is not a one-time event, but an ongoing process that requires continuous effort and commitment from individuals, communities, and governments. Even though it may seem difficult, it's important to keep fighting for a better future for all.
All right, let's talk about another problem now. What about inequality? Why do you think we consider this problem as a global problem?
Inequality is considered a global problem for a number of reasons. One of the main reasons is that it can have a significant impact on people's lives and well-being, particularly for those who are at the bottom of the economic ladder. When income and wealth are concentrated in the hands of a few, it can lead to poverty, poor health outcomes, lack of education, and limited opportunities for many people. Inequality can also contribute to social unrest and political instability. When large segments of a society feel left behind or marginalized, it can lead to frustration and anger, which can fuel civil unrest and political polarization. Additionally, inequality can have a negative impact on economic growth and development. When the majority of people are unable to access the resources and opportunities they need to succeed, it can limit the overall potential of an economy. Inequality is also a global problem because it is not limited to any one country or region. Rather, it is a pervasive issue that affects countries and communities around the world, often with the most severe effects felt by the poorest countries. This is also why the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, has made reducing inequality a goal to be achieved by 2030. In short, inequality is a global problem because it can have a negative impact on people's lives, societies, and economies, and it is a pervasive issue that affects countries and communities around the world.
How can we fight inequality?
There are a number of ways to fight inequality, both at the individual and societal level. Some of the ways include progressive taxation. One of the most effective ways to reduce inequality is through progressive taxation, which involves taxing those with higher incomes at a higher rate than those with lower incomes. This can help to redistribute wealth and resources, and can also provide revenue for government programs that can help to reduce poverty and improve access to education and healthcare. Invest in education. Education is an important tool in the fight against inequality. By providing people with access to quality education, it can help to break the cycle of poverty and give people the skills and knowledge they need to succeed in the modern economy. Increase minimum wage. Minimum wage is another way to reduce poverty and inequality. By raising the minimum wage, it ensures that people who work full-time jobs have a living wage and can afford basic necessities. Encourage unionization. Unions have been a powerful force in reducing inequality and raising wages for workers. By encouraging unionization, it can help to give workers more bargaining power and can help to reduce income inequality. Encourage economic growth. Encouraging economic growth by creating jobs and promoting entrepreneurship can help to reduce poverty and inequality. Increase access to healthcare. Access to healthcare is an important aspect in fighting inequality. Universal healthcare can help to reduce poverty, improve health outcomes, and promote social and economic mobility. Encourage social programs. Government-funded programs such as welfare, food assistance, and housing subsidies can help to reduce poverty and inequality by providing people with the resources they need to succeed. It's worth noting that fighting inequality is a complex and ongoing process that requires cooperation and action from individuals, communities, and governments. Additionally, it's important to address the root causes of inequality, such as discrimination and lack of access to opportunities, which can help to ensure that progress is sustainable.
Is inequality related to racism?
Inequality and racism are closely related, as they both stem from the same system of power and privilege. Racism refers to the belief in the inherent superiority of one race over another, and can manifest in a variety of ways, including discrimination, prejudice, and bias. Racism can be both intentional and unintentional, and it can have a significant impact on the lives and opportunities of people of color. Inequality, on the other hand, refers to the unequal distribution of resources and opportunities. It can be seen in a variety of areas, including income, education, healthcare, and housing. In many cases, people of color, particularly Black and Indigenous people, experience more inequality than white people, and racism plays a significant role in perpetuating these disparities. For example, Black people and other people of color are more likely to live in poverty and to have less access to quality education and healthcare. They are also more likely to be unemployed and to be paid less than white people for doing the same work. Additionally, people of color are more likely to be the victims of police brutality and to be incarcerated at a higher rate. In other words, racism is a cause of inequality, as it creates and perpetuates disparities in access to resources and opportunities, leading to a wide range of negative impacts on people of color. Addressing racism and inequality requires understanding the ways in which they are interconnected and taking action to dismantle the systems and structures that perpetuate them.
Maybe we can start fighting this problem at home as we bring up our children to be fair to other people and to help them understand that we are all the same. We are all equal. Is there anything we can say to parents about that?
Yes. Raising children with an understanding of equality and social justice is an important step in creating a more just and equitable society. Here are a few things parents can do to promote these values in their children. Teach children about diversity and inclusivity. Children should learn about the different cultures, races, religions, and abilities that make up our society. This can help them understand and appreciate the unique perspectives and experiences of others. Encourage empathy. Encourage children to put themselves in the shoes of others and to consider how they might feel in different situations. This will help them develop empathy and understanding towards others. Discuss and address bias. Talk to children about bias and discrimination and help them understand how these things can impact people's lives. Encourage them to challenge their own biases and to speak out against discrimination when they see it. Lead by example. Children learn by example, so it's important for parents to model the values of equality and social justice in their own behavior. Show children that it's important to stand up for what's right, even when it's difficult. Provide them with opportunities to help others. Encourage children to volunteer, participate in community service, or donate to charity. This helps them understand that they have the power to make a difference in the lives of others. Talk to them about current events and social issues. Keep an open dialogue with your children and help them understand the broader context of the world around them. By teaching children these values and modeling them in our own behavior, we can help create a more just and equitable society for all.
That sounds great. I hope we all try to actively think about these solutions and try to implement them in our daily lives, starting with the ones we know the most and love the most.
I agree. It's important to take action in our own lives and communities to address these global problems. Every individual can make a difference in their own way, whether it's through volunteering, supporting organizations that work to address these issues, or advocating for policy change. By working together and taking action at all levels, we can make progress towards a more just and equitable world.
Now we still have a couple of global problems to discuss. Let's talk about political conflict. If we read our entire human history, there has always been political conflict. This problem has been in existence forever. So, why is it a problem? Why don't we just call it human nature?
Political conflict is a problem because it can lead to violence, war, and human suffering. It can also impede economic development and progress, and can prevent countries and regions from reaching their full potential. Additionally, political conflicts can create a breeding ground for extremist groups and organizations which can threaten global security. It's true that political conflicts have existed throughout human history, but that doesn't mean that we should accept them as an inevitability or a part of human nature. While there may be deep-seated human impulses that contribute to political conflict, such as the desire for power and control, there are also many factors that can be addressed and changed. These can include poverty, inequality, lack of education, and poor governance. By addressing these underlying issues, we can work to reduce the likelihood of political conflict and help create more stable and peaceful societies. It's important to note that solving political conflicts can be a challenging task. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution, and it requires a multifaceted approach that includes diplomatic efforts, economic development, and building institutions that promote good governance and the rule of law. It's important to also involve the parties in the conflict to find a peaceful solution.
Sometimes, as individuals, we feel helpless towards political conflict. We feel there's nothing we can do about those big conflicts and problems between nations. So we may choose to stop caring about them. Deep inside, we all know it is wrong to turn a blind eye to these problems, but what can we really do about them as individuals?
As individuals, it can be difficult to feel like we have a direct impact on political conflicts happening in other parts of the world. However, there are still things that we can do to make a difference. One of the most important things is to stay informed and educated about the conflicts and their underlying causes. By understanding the issues, we can better advocate for policies and actions that support peace and stability. Another way to make a difference is through supporting organizations that are working to address the conflicts. This can include organizations that provide humanitarian aid, promote human rights, or work to build peace and stability. Another way is to advocate for policies that promote peace and stability. This can include supporting diplomatic efforts to resolve conflicts, promoting economic development in conflict-affected areas, and supporting institutions that promote good governance and the rule of law. Finally, another way is to use your voice and platform to raise awareness about these issues. Share information about the conflicts and their impacts on social media, and talk to friends and family about the importance of addressing these issues. It's important to remember that change often starts at the grassroots level, and individual actions can have a cumulative effect. By taking small actions, we can contribute to a greater effort to find solutions to political conflicts.
I agree. I guess, just like with other problems, it is okay to feel helpless at times, but it's definitely not okay to stop caring or giving up completely.
Exactly. It's important to remember that even small actions can make a difference, and that by working together, we can create meaningful change. It's also important to remember that addressing political conflicts is a complex and ongoing process. It may take time and require multiple approaches, but by continuing to care and take action, we can contribute to a more peaceful and stable world.
All right, now let's talk about one last problem, and we can still feel the impact of this problem since it didn't happen a long time ago. What about the spread of infectious diseases? When it was happening, or when we were in the middle of it, we felt how dangerous and life-threatening this problem was. But when the big waves subsided, many people continued their lives as if nothing happened. It's definitely a good idea to move on, but shouldn't these big outbreaks encourage us to do something about this big problem when there is no outbreak? Shouldn't we prepare ourselves to prevent the next big outbreak?
Yes, it is important to continue to take action to prevent the spread of infectious diseases, even when there is not currently an outbreak. Preparing for and preventing future outbreaks is crucial in order to protect public health and limit the potential for widespread illness and death. There are several ways that we can prepare and prevent the spread of infectious diseases, such as investing in research and development of vaccines and treatments, building and strengthening public health infrastructure and systems, improving access to healthcare and education about disease prevention, supporting global health initiatives and collaborating with international partners, increasing funding for public health agencies at all levels of government, encouraging individuals to practice good hygiene and follow public health guidelines. By taking these steps, we can work to reduce the impact of infectious diseases and be better prepared to respond to future outbreaks.
Why do you think the risk of global outbreaks increased dramatically in the past few decades?
There are several factors that have contributed to the increased risk of global outbreaks in recent decades. One of the main factors is the rapid increase in global travel and trade, which allows diseases to spread quickly across borders. Additionally, changes in land use and land cover, such as urbanization and deforestation, have led to increased contact between humans and wildlife, which can increase the risk of animal-to-human transmission of diseases. Climate change has also played a role in increasing the risk of outbreaks by altering the distribution of disease vectors, such as mosquitoes and ticks, and by altering the timing and intensity of disease outbreaks. Other factors, such as the overuse of antibiotics, have led to the emergence of antibiotic-resistant strains of bacteria, making it more difficult to treat infectious diseases.
How can we prevent the next big epidemic?
Preventing the next big epidemic requires a multifaceted approach. One key element is to strengthen global health systems and preparedness. This includes increasing funding for disease surveillance and response, investing in research and development for new diagnostic tools and vaccines, and building capacity for rapid response to outbreaks. Additionally, it is important to address underlying social and economic factors that increase the risk of outbreaks, such as poverty, lack of access to clean water and sanitation, and deforestation. Another important aspect is to improve international coordination and cooperation in responding to outbreaks. This includes building partnerships between governments, international organizations, and the private sector, and sharing information and resources in a timely and transparent manner. Furthermore, improving public health education and awareness campaigns can play a key role in preventing the spread of infectious diseases. This includes educating people on how to protect themselves and others from infection, promoting healthy behaviors such as hand washing, and encouraging people to seek medical care if they develop symptoms. Lastly, implementing measures that reduce the risk of zoonotic diseases that spread from animals to humans, such as wildlife trade bans, improving animal welfare, and reducing deforestation.
Agreed. I guess that's all I would like to discuss for today, but do you have any final words about those global problems we talked about? Any advice?
It is important to remember that these global problems are complex and multifaceted, and there is no single solution that will solve them. Addressing them will require a combination of efforts from individuals, governments, and international organizations. We should all do our part to be informed about these issues and to work towards creating a more just and equitable world for all people. It is also important to be aware of these problems and to understand that they are interconnected and that solving one of them may help solve others. The most important thing is to not give up and to keep fighting for a better world.
I can't agree more. Thank you for discussing global problems with me today, Ben.
You're welcome. It's important to be aware of the problems facing our world and to actively work towards finding solutions. Remember, as individuals, we may feel small in the face of these global challenges, but collectively, we have the power to make a difference. Keep informed, stay engaged, and take action in whatever way you can, whether that be through volunteering, supporting organizations that are working to address these issues, or by promoting awareness and education in your community. Together, we can work towards a better future for all.
For our listeners everywhere, thank you very much for listening to another episode from English Plus Podcast. And I would like to remind you that there is a wealth of knowledge and English for you to benefit from on our website, EnglishPlusPodcast.com. And while you're there, you can check our online courses and educational books. And remember, if you want to listen to all our episodes, you can subscribe to English Plus Premium on Buzzsprout or on Patreon. You can find all the links you need in the description of the episode. That'll be all for today. This was your host, Danny. Thank you very much for listening to English Plus. I will see you next time.